On December 26th, there are some indications that your daughter was sexually molested.
Well,
therefore, here's the motive. You were doing it. Maybe you'd done it before. Maybe you just did it that night. Perhaps your wife discovered you. Whatever it was, JonBenét's cried out. You killed her.
Well, that's fits right in the category of it could have been done by an alien as well. It makes no sense. There's no history.
Some of the authorities have said that you staged this.
Issue is no logic has been applied to any of this case. Why would I, for example, have staged this horrible scene and then disturbed it myself, pulled the tape off her mouth, carried her upstairs, tried to untie the hands before I brought her upstairs? If I'd have staged it, I would have wanted the police to see it as I staged it. It's not logical. Someone killed this 6-year-old child. We know that, and we want them captured.
In the heart of the Ramsey home, one room has been overlooked for decades, the private bathroom of JonBenét Ramsey. This intimate space, tucked away next to her bedroom, was a sanctuary for daily routines, but also a silent witness to forbidden interactions between JonBenét and her family members. Hidden within its walls lie crucial clues, traces of hygiene struggles, discarded items, and subtle signs that paint a chilling picture of what really happened that fateful night. These pieces of evidence don't just solve a puzzle, they expose the dark secrets of crimes brewing inside a seemingly perfect family. What if this forgotten room holds the key to unlocking the truth? What horrors might it reveal about those closest to her? In the sprawling Ramsey family home in Boulder, Colorado, JonBenét's private bathroom stood as a secluded sanctuary adjacent to her bedroom on the second floor. This intimate space, accessible via a door directly from her sleeping quarters, was designed for a young child's daily routines, featuring typical fixtures like a bathtub sink and toilet that blended functionality with the home's upscale decor. Positioned away from the main living areas and the basement where much of the tragedy unfolded, it offered a sense of privacy that isolated it from casual visitors or household traffic. Yet, in the aftermath of the events, this unassuming room emerged as a pivotal area in the investigation, holding clues that investigators scrutinized for insights into the family's dynamics and the sequence of that fateful night. Access to JonBenét's bathroom was inherently limited, primarily restricted to immediate family members who shared the upper level of the house. Patsy Ramsey, as the primary caregiver, would have frequented the space to assist with bathing and hygiene, while John Ramsey, the father, might have entered occasionally for parental duties. Burke, JonBenét's older brother, could have ventured in during sibling interactions or play. Given the proximity to his own room, household staff, such as the housekeeper, had routine entry for cleaning and maintenance, ensuring the area remained tidy amid the family's busy lifestyle. Close friends or extended family visiting the home might have glimpsed it during tours or stays, but outsiders, be they neighbors, party guests, or service providers, were unlikely to step inside without explicit permission, reinforcing its role as a guarded, personal domain within the larger residence. What makes this bathroom particularly compelling in the case is its status as a repository for key evidence that points to deeper undercurrents in JonBenét's life. The items and traces discovered here collectively trend toward revealing signs of sensitive mistreatment endured by the young girl, shedding light on patterns that may have gone unnoticed or deliberately overlooked. These findings prompt questions about why such indicators remained hidden for so long, potentially due to the insulating effects of family privacy, social connections, and professional oversight that shielded the household from external scrutiny. Most crucially, the evidence converges on identifying the primary suspect, unraveling layers of involvement that challenge initial assumptions. As we delve into these discoveries, they will illuminate the subtle yet profound signals of mistreatment, the mechanisms that allowed them to evade detection, and the central figure whose actions tie it all together, offering a clearer picture of the hidden tensions at play. One notable discovery in the private bathroom was the unflushed feces left in the toilet bowl, a detail captured in crime scene photographs and noted during the initial walkthrough. This residue appeared fresh and undisturbed, suggesting it had occurred recently, perhaps in the hours leading up to the incident. Investigators documented it as part of the broader examination of the upstairs area, highlighting its potential connection to ongoing hygiene issues. The presence of such material in a child's personal raised questions about routine habits and possible disruptions in normal patterns, especially given the family's reported emphasis on cleanliness and order. While no immediate forensic tests were conducted on the sample due to the chaotic handling of the scene, it stood out as an anomaly that could point to a lapse in supervision or an event that interrupted standard bedtime protocols. This finding aligned with accounts from those familiar with the household, who mentioned frequent interventions related to toileting challenges, underscoring a pattern that might have persisted over time. Adjacent to the toilet, a pair of pajamas stained with fecal matter was found discarded on the floor, adding another layer to the scene's narrative. The garment, believed to belong to the young girl, showed visible soiling that indicated an involuntary release, consistent with overflow from retention issues. Crime scene reports describes as dark and smeared, suggesting they were not fresh but perhaps from an earlier episode that hadn't been addressed promptly. This item was collected as evidence, though it wasn't subjected to extensive DNA analysis at the time, limiting its immediate interpretive value. The proximity to the toilet implied an attempt at self-management, or a hurried response to an accident, potentially occurring in the privacy of the bathroom. Such discoveries prompted scrutiny of the family's daily routines, with some observers noting that these incidents were not isolated but part of a recurring theme documented in medical visits. These traces of fecal soiling, including the unflushed material and the stained pajamas, collectively serve as potential indicators of underlying sensitive mistreatment experienced by JonBenét's. In cases where children exhibit persistent soiling beyond the typical toilet training age, it can signal deeper emotional or physical distress, often linked to environments where stress or trauma disrupts normal bodily functions. The repeated nature of these signs, as inferred from household accounts, suggests a chronic condition that might stem from unaddressed vulnerabilities, making it harder for external parties to intervene. This pattern could reflect a household dynamic where such issues were normalized or minimized, allowing potential mistreatment to persist without raising alarms among close contacts or professionals. The subtlety of these symptoms means they are frequently overlooked, especially in affluent settings where privacy is prioritized, contributing to a veil of normalcy that shields problematic behaviors from scrutiny. Beyond the fecal evidence, other items related to bedwetting further illuminate the scope of hygiene challenges in the space. A partially open package of pull-up diapers was discovered hanging from a cabinet in the nearby laundry area, indicating recent use for nighttime protection. These absorbent undergarments, sized for a child of JonBenét's age, were a staple in managing involuntary urination, as confirmed by medical records showing multiple consultations for this issue. The package's accessible placement suggested it was part of an ongoing strategy to handle accidents discreetly, preventing them from becoming public knowledge. Additionally, the urine-soaked underwear pointed to a wetting episode that occurred around the time of the events, with forensic analysis revealing saturation levels consistent with a recent voiding. This garment, oversized and mismatched, added to the puzzle of what transpired, implying a possible change or intervention that night. Plastic sheets covering the mattress in the adjacent bedroom were another telltale sign, designed to protect against leaks and requiring frequent laundering, as household help had reported changing bedding almost daily due to these occurrences. Such protective measures highlight a proactive, but perhaps insufficient response to a persistent problem, one that demanded constant attention and resources. Scientific explanations for encopresis. The condition involving involuntary fecal soiling, often rooted in chronic constipation leading to overflow leakage. But research also connects it to psychological factors like stress or trauma from mistreatment. Studies indicate that while physical causes such as dietary issues or withholding behaviors predominate, emotional triggers, including anxiety from unstable home environments, can exacerbate the problem, turning it into a cycle of retention and accidental release. In contexts of mistreatment, encopresis may manifest as a somatic response, where the JonBenét's stress response disrupts bowel control, as evidenced by clinical observations linking it to neglect or mistreatment. Similarly, bedwetting, or nocturnal enuresis, is frequently attributed to developmental delays, genetic predispositions, or bladder immaturity, but scientific literature increasingly associates it with psychological distress from adverse experiences. Research shows that secondary enuresis, wetting that reemerges after a dry period, can be a red flag for trauma, such as mistreatment, which heightens cortisol levels and interferes with sleep cycles, leading to loss of control. The American Academy of Pediatrics notes that enuresis occurs more frequently in children facing punitive responses to accidents, which can compound feelings of shame and perpetuate the issue. Furthermore, studies in journals reveal that punishment for bedwetting correlates with depressive symptoms and reduced quality of life, suggesting a bidirectional link where mistreatment both causes and is exacerbated by the condition. When enuresis and encopresis coexist, as seen in some pediatric cases, they amplify each other through shared pathways of autonomic nervous system dysregulation, often rooted in chronic stress from unsafe surroundings. Neurobiological models explain this via heightened amygdala activity, which prioritizes fight or flight responses over voluntary control, a common outcome in mistreated children. These explanations underscore how physiological and psychological factors intertwine, making such symptoms critical markers for intervenient potential mistreatment scenarios. Before moving on to the next evidence, let's talk about Dr. Francesco Beuf and the signs of mistreatment directly mentioned in his reports. Dr. Francesco Beuf, often referred to as doctor surrounding the case, was a well-established pediatrician in Boulder, Colorado, with a career spanning several decades. Born in the early 1930s, he graduated from the University of Pennsylvania School of Medicine and had been practicing pediatrics since the 1960s, building a reputation for his work with children in the local community. He became the primary physician for the young girl starting when she was around 3 years old, handling routine checkups and various health concerns over the next few years. His involvement extended beyond typical doctor-patient interactions, as he developed a close relationship with the family, even socializing with them on occasion, which raised questions about potential biases in his assessments. One of the most striking aspects of Dr. Beuf's records is the sheer frequency of visits, nearly 30 appointments in just over 3 years, which many experts have flagged as unusually high for a child of that age without a chronic underlying condition. These visits covered a range of issues, from common colds and sinus infections to more persistent problems like bedwetting and recurrent injuries in sensitive areas that required medical attention. For instance, there were at least several instances where the child was brought in for examinations related to irritation or discomfort in those regions, which Dr. Beuf attributed to everyday causes such as hygiene issues or minor infections. But why so many repeated visits for similar complaints? Could this pattern indicate something more systemic that wasn't being addressed, or was it simply the result of overly cautious parenting? His notes consistently downplayed any red flags, stating that there were no indications of sensitive mistreatment, either physical or emotional, based on his observations during external exams. This stance became a point of contention, especially when contrasted with later medical findings that suggested ongoing issues. Dr. Beuf's reports painted a picture of a healthy child with no history of mistreatment. But anecdotes from those close to the situation tell a different story. Family friends and acquaintances recalled hearing about the child's frequent doctor visits, sometimes multiple times in a short period, which sparked whispers about whether everything was as normal as it seemed. One particularly odd episode involved a series of phone calls on December 17, 1996, just days before the holiday season. The mother reportedly called Dr. Beuf's office 3 times within an hour in the late afternoon, seeking urgent advice or an appointment. What prompted such frantic communication? Was it related to a sudden flare-up of one of the recurring health issues, or something more alarming that wasn't documented? Dr. Beuf later explained these as routine inquiries. But the timing and intensity have led many to question if there was an underlying concern that wasn't fully explored or reported. Adding to the peculiarities was Dr. Beuf's behavior in the immediate aftermath of the tragedy. He was one of the first professionals called to the home on the morning of December 26, 1996, where he provided sedatives to the distraught mother, an action that demonstrated his deep involvement with the family. This closeness extended to his reluctance to hand over medical records to investigators initially. When police requested the files in early January 1997, Dr. Beuf resisted, citing patient confidentiality, which delayed the process and fueled suspicions of a possible cover-up. Why the hesitation? If the records truly showed no signs of mistreatment, as he claimed, wouldn't immediate cooperation have cleared up any doubts? Instead, the family and their attorneys met with him to review the documents themselves before releasing them, a step that some interpreted as an effort to control the narrative. This meeting reportedly reassured the parents that nothing incriminating was in the files, but it also highlighted potential conflicts of interest, given Dr. Beuf's friendship with the father through shared social circles like golf outings. The medical results from Dr. Beuf's examinations often flitted with expert opinions drawn from the autopsy. While his records insisted there were no patterns suggestive of sensitive mistreatment, forensic pathologists later pointed to evidence of chronic inflammation and injuries in sensitive areas that could indicate repeated harm. Dr. Beuf maintained that any issues he treated were benign and common in young children, such as those caused by bubble baths or poor wiping habits, and he never conducted internal exams because he saw no need. But how could such discrepancies exist between a pediatrician's ongoing care and a coroner's detailed analysis? Was Dr. Beuf overlooking subtle signs due to his familiarity with the family? Or were the autopsy interpretations overreaching? These questions have persisted, with some critics arguing that his public defenses of the family, stating unequivocally that the child showed no history of mistreatment, were influenced by loyalty rather than pure medical judgment. Stories from the investigation further illuminate these oddities. In interviews, Dr. Beuf emphasized that the child was always accompanied by a parent during visits and appeared happy and well-adjusted, with no behavioral indicators of distress. Yet, there were accounts from nannies and household staff about the child's occasional, unexplained bruises or emotional outbursts, which weren't reflected in his notes. One former employee recalled instances where the child complained of discomfort in sensitive areas, leading to doctor visits, but Dr. Beef's documentation framed these as isolated incidents without deeper inquiry. Another puzzling detail emerged from phone records showing additional calls to his office on December 7, 1996, while the parents were out of town, possibly made by a grandparent or caregiver. What health crisis necessitated contact during their absence? This pattern of frequent, sometimes urgent, communication suggests a level of ongoing concern that contradicts the doctor's portrayal of a routinely healthy patient. Dr. Beef's role extended into media appearances and documentaries, where he reiterated his belief that no mistreatment occurred under his watch. In a 2001 documentary, he was interviewed and stood firm, dismissing any notions of prior issues as baseless speculation. However, this unwavering support has been scrutinized, especially since he was aware of the high number of visits for conditions that could, in hindsight, align with signs of sensitive mistreatment. Experts in child welfare have questioned whether standard protocols for reporting suspicions were followed, given that pediatricians are mandated reporters. Did Dr. Beuf ever consider consulting Child Protective Services, or was his judgment clouded by the family's prominence and his personal ties? The contradictions between his clean bill of health and the autopsy's revelations about injuries in sensitive areas have led to debates about medical oversight in affluent communities. Moreover, the handling of the medical records post-incident added layers of intrigue. After finally releasing them under pressure, the files were pored over by investigators, who noted the absence of any flagged concerns despite the volume of visits. But why were there no referrals to specialists for the persistent bedwetting or other recurring ailments? Some have speculated that Dr. Beef's practice catered to wealthy clients, potentially leading to more lenient interpretations to maintain relationships. Anecdotes from other patients describe him as kind and thorough, yet in this instance, his assessments seem at odds with the evidence that emerged later. This raises broader questions about accountability in pediatric care when subtle signs might be dismissed. In reflecting on these elements, the narrative around Dr. Beuf reveals a web of malheuens that continue to puzzle observers. His background as a seasoned physician should have equipped him to detect any irregularities, yet his reports tell a story of normalcy amid what others see as warning signs. Why, then, did the sensitive mistreatment persist without intervention or reporting? To understand why the issues of mistreatment related to Dr. Beuf have not yet been discovered, we can look at one piece of evidence that also appears in JonBenét's private bathroom. This particular item is an original pastel painted by T42, created by Penny Pearson Beuf, the wife of Dr. Francesco Beuf. Penny, a signature member of the Pastel Society of America, had built a reputation as a talented landscape artist, even winning the award for the best pastel in the state of Colorado. Her works, often sold over the span of more than 3 decades, captured serene scenes in soft, vibrant hues, blending oils and pastels to evoke a sense of calm and beauty. In this case, the painting hung prominently in the bathroom, a space typically reserved for personal and intimate use, suggesting it wasn't just a casual acquisition, but a deliberate choice that reflected a deeper connection. The presence of such a personal artwork in a child's private area implies a level of familiarity and trust. Where art becomes more than decoration, it's a symbol of shared aesthetics and relationships that extend beyond professional boundaries. This piece, documented in detailed accounts of the home's interior, stands out not only for its artistic merit, but for what it reveals about the intertwined lives of the two families, hinting at how creative expressions can mask underlying complexities in social circles. Penny's artistic pursuits weren't isolated. They mirrored aspects of Patsy's own life in intriguing ways, fostering a bond built on mutual admiration. Both women shared a flair for performance and glamour that set them apart in their Boulder community. Penny, in her younger years, had a diverse resume that included stints as a flight attendant, where she navigated the skies with poise and charm, and as a camp counselor, guiding groups through outdoor adventures with enthusiasm. This adventurous spirit transitioned seamlessly into her acting career, where she landed roles in Hollywood productions. She appeared as an extra and photo double in films like 9 to 5, alongside Dolly Parton and Lily Tomlin, bringing humor and reliability to the set. Her time on the TV series, Dallas, for 2 seasons involved building friendships and trading stories with the cast, eventually leading her to an all-female improv group where she crossed paths with comedians like Robin Williams. Improv, with its demand for quick wit and adaptability, honed her ability to engage audiences, much like the stage presence required in beauty pageants. Patsy, similarly, had shown in the spotlight as a former beauty queen, mastering the art of presentation, poise, and performance under pressure. Her pageant days involved not just physical grace but also the improvisational skill of handling interviews and talent segments, creating a parallel to Penny's comedic and acting endeavors. This shared history of being in the public eye likely sparked conversations, filled with anecdotes about overcoming challenges and embracing the limelight, drawing them closer as women who understood the thrill and demands of such worlds. Moreover, Penny and Patsy connected through their resilience in the face of personal battles, particularly with health. Both women confronted cancer with remarkable courage, grit, and humor, qualities highlighted in Penny's obituary as defining her character. Penny fought glioblastoma, a form of brain cancer, for 6.5 years before passing in 2016 at the age of 67, defying odds with a sunny personality that loved making people laugh. Her ability to maintain humor amid adversity echoed Patsy's own journey. Patsy had battled ovarian cancer, emerging from it with a renewed sense of strength that she channeled into her family life. These experiences likely created a profound empathy between them, allowing for deep, supportive dialogues about perseverance and finding joy in hardship. Additionally, both were on their second marriages when their paths intertwined more closely. Penny's first marriage to attorney Warren Goss produced 2 children and exposed her to legal intricacies, which might have informed her perspective on life's complexities. Her union with Dr. Beuf brought stability and shared interests, much like Patsy's marriage to John, which blended families and ambitions. Penny's psychological resilience shone through her leadership of a meditation group for over a decade, where she guided others toward mental fortitude, a practice that could have offered solace to Patsy during stressful times. This alignment in life experiences, from creative pursuits to personal triumphs over illness, cultivated a friendship that felt organic and profound, extending beyond surface-level interactions to a genuine camaraderie rooted in shared vulnerabilities and victories. The closeness between Penny and Patsy naturally extended to the broader Ramsey family, weaving the Beufs into their social fabric in meaningful ways. Attending the same church, St. John's Episcopal in Boulder, provided a communal foundation where spiritual and social ties overlapped. Regular dinners at each other's homes, John recalled 2 or 3 such gatherings, fostered casual familiarity, turning acquaintances into confidence. Beuf's role as the pediatrician for both JonBené and her brother Burke meant frequent professional interactions that blurred into personal ones, with house calls and consultations building trust over years. Penny, with her warm and engaging personality, complemented this by offering emotional support, perhaps through her meditation expertise, which aligned with Patsy's need for inner peace amid her busy life. Unlike other friendships that might have felt more superficial, such as with Susan Stein, Penny's connection with Patsy seemed more fitting, like that of a true girlfriend who shared laughs and insights. John himself described the Beufs as casual friends, but acknowledged their wonderful qualities, indicating a level of affection that went beyond mere doctor-patient dynamics. This integration into family life meant the Beufs were privy to intimate details, from holiday celebrations to everyday routines, creating a bond that encompassed the entire household. Penny's artistic contributions, like her paintings, further embedded her in their world, symbolizing a creative exchange that enriched their home environment. Yet, this deep friendship raises questions about the potential for shielding behaviors, particularly in how it might have concealed mistreatment involving John and the Ramsey family. The very presence of Penny's painting in such a private space suggests a level of involvement that could motivate protective actions, where personal stakes, artistic reputation tied to the home, encouraged discretion. Penny and Dr. Beuf actively participated in efforts to safeguard the Ramseys from scrutiny, as seen in their appearances in the documentary, JonBenét's America. There, Penny articulated a collective desire to protect them and shield them from external pressures, framing it as a compassionate response to grief but potentially masking deeper motivations. This shielding extended to public gestures, like organizing a church event in mid-1998, where the congregation lined the pavement in support, timed suspiciously close to the decision on whether to convene a grand jury. Such coordination hints at a deliberate strategy to bolster the Ramses' image, with the Beufs leveraging their community standing to deflect suspicion. Dr. Beuf's decision to secure medical records in a bank safety deposit box, as detailed in the Ramses' own book, Death of Innocence, underscores this protective impulse. He reacted furiously when the box was improperly opened, demanding explanations to preserve confidentiality that might have hidden uncomfortable truths. This act, while presented as a security precaution, could serve to obscure any irregularities that pointed toward mistreatment by John or within the family dynamic. The Beufs' involvement in media and public relations further illustrates this pattern of concealment. Interviews in 1998 and 2001, probed by prosecutor Mike Cain, revealed questions about orchestrated appearances, Did the Ramseys coordinate with the Beufs for TV spots to counter negative narratives? John's surprise at Dr. Beuf's primetime discussion at Mintz, claiming it was a Mike Bynum deal, seemed evasive, especially given Kane's persistent inquiries into prior discussions. The lawyer's intervention to halt questioning suggests an awareness of sensitive territory, where alliances might compromise objectivity. Penny's own words and footage, emphasizing protection within weeks of the events, align with a broader effort to insulate the Ramseys, possibly extending to downplaying any signs of mistreatment. Their church affiliation amplified this, as fellow congregants, the Beufs could rally support, framing the Ramseys as victims deserving of grace rather than investigation. This communal backing, rooted in shared faith and social ties, created a buffer against external probes, allowing potential mistreatment by John, perhaps in moments of unchecked authority, to remain veiled. Moreover, the personal incentives for the Beufs to shield the Ramseys cannot be overlooked. With Penny's artwork embedded in the home, any scandal could tarnish her professional legacy, associating her creations with controversy. Dr. Beuf's reputation as a trusted pediatrician hinged on discretion, breaching that for revelations of mistreatment would undermine his practice. Their joint appearances in documentaries and media not only defended the Ramseys but also positioned the Beufs as loyal allies, potentially diverting attention from John's role in family matters. Kane's 1998 questioning highlighted this, pressing on whether Dr. Beuf was called specifically at Patsy's request for sedatives, implying a readiness to provide comfort that bordered on complicity. The absence of the Beufs from the immediate crime scene, unlike other friends like the Whites and Fernies, might indicate a calculated distance, close enough to protect, but not so involved as to invite direct scrutiny. This dynamic suggests a network where mistreatment could fester detected, with friends like the Beufs acting as unwitting or deliberate guardians of secrets. The extent of this shielding becomes evident in how the Beufs navigated legal and public pressures. Dr. Beuf's indignation over the bank box incident, demanding accountability, mirrors a broader defensiveness that prioritized the Ramseys' privacy. Penny's leadership in meditation groups, offering psychological resilience, could have extended to bolstering Patsy's mental fortitude against accusations, indirectly aiding John's position by maintaining family unity. Their testimony and public statements consistently portrayed the Ramseys in a sympathetic light, countering theories that implicated John in mistreatment through omission or denial. This protective layer, woven from friendship and shared experiences, effectively delayed discoveries, allowing narratives of innocence to dominate. The Beufs' actions, from media coordination to community mobilization, formed a multifaceted shield, ensuring that any hints of mistreatment remained buried beneath layers of loyalty and social insulation. Another piece of evidence that has sparked considerable debate is the red turtleneck sweater found in JonBenét's private bathroom. This garment, a child's size red turtleneck, was discovered balled up on the bathroom counter or possibly in the sink, appearing somewhat rumpled or damp in crime scene photos. Investigators noted its position during the initial search of the upstairs area, where it stood out amid other personal items like toiletries and towels. The sweater's material, a soft knit fabric typical for winter wear, showed no immediate signs of forensic traces that were publicly disclosed, but its disheveled state suggested it had been hastily removed or set aside. This detail became significant because it contrasted with the outfit JonBenet was ultimately found in, prompting questions about the sequence of events that night. The red turtleneck was collected as part of the broader evidence inventory from the home, though it wasn't subjected to the same level of scrutiny as items from the basement. Its presence in such an intimate space implied it was part of her wardrobe rotation, perhaps intended for comfort or coordination with family outfits. Yet, its condition and location hinted at a disruption in normal bedtime routines, where clothing might have been changed or discarded unexpectedly. This sweater, simple in design but loaded with implications, became a focal point for analyzing the family's statements and the potential for inconsistencies in their recollections. Patsy Ramsey's accounts regarding the red turtleneck introduced notable contradictions that fueled suspicion among investigators. In her initial statements to police on December 26, 1996, and in subsequent interviews, Patsy described putting JonBenet to bed in the red turtleneck paired with white long underwear, emphasizing that her daughter was asleep upon arriving home from a Christmas party, and that she had gently changed her into comfortable sleepwear without waking her. She portrayed the scene as routine, with JonBenet being carried upstairs by John and then tucked in snugly for the night. However, this narrative clashed with the physical evidence when JonBenet was discovered wearing the white long-sleeved shirt with a sequined star from the party earlier that evening, not the red turtleneck. This discrepancy prompted follow-up questioning, where Patsy adjusted her story in April 1997, suggesting she might have left the white shirt on and only changed the bottoms, or that JonBenet could have woken up and changed herself. She attributed the mix-up to the trauma of the moment and the fog of grief, insisting it was an honest error rather than a deliberate falsehood. Detectives, however, viewed this shift as problematic, especially since Patsy's early descriptions were detailed and confident. In a June 1998 interview with Tom Haney and DeMuth, Patsy was shown photos of the red turtleneck and became emotional, acknowledging it as the one she had wanted JonBenét's to wear to the White's party, but that her daughter had refused, opting for the white top instead. This emotional response, captured on tape, showed her pausing and tearing up, leading to a break in the session. Critics argue this reaction indicated guilt or awareness of the item's significance, while supporters see it as genuine distress over painful memories. The contradiction persisted in later accounts, with Patsy maintaining that the red turtleneck was part of her plan for matching outfits. But the evidence suggested otherwise, eroding trust in her version of events. These inconsistencies in Patsy's statements have led to speculation about whether she was directly responsible or merely covering up for something that happened. One prominent theory posits that Patsy was the perpetrator in a moment of rage triggered by a bedtime accident. According to former detective Steve Thomas, outlined in his 2000 book, JonBenét's Inside the Ramsey Murder Investigation, the red turtleneck could have been involved in a scenario where JonBenét's wet the bed, prompting Patsy to change her into the sweater as part of cleaning up. Frustrated by repeated incidents and the stress of the holidays, Patsy might have lashed out, perhaps pushing or striking JonBenét's, causing a head injury that proved fatal. In this view, the balled-up sweater on the counter represented a hasty attempt to redress her daughter after the accident. But the plan unraveled, leading to a staged kidnapping to divert suspicion. Thomas argued that Patsy's initial claim of dressing JonBenét's in the red turtleneck was a slip, revealing her involvement in post-incident handling of JonBenét's. He pointed to fiber evidence from Patsy's red and black jacket found on duct tape used in the staging, suggesting her hands-on role. This theory frames Patsy as overwhelmed, possibly influenced by her recent cancer recovery and the pressures of maintaining a perfect family image, snapping in a private moment that escalated tragically. Supporters of this idea note Patsy's emotional volatility in interviews, where she sometimes seemed defensive about parenting decisions and the lack of forced entry, implying an inside job. However, this perspective has been criticized for relying on circumstantial evidence and assuming malice without direct proof, with some experts questioning whether a mother could commit such an act without prior history of violence. Alternatively, the contradiction might indicate Patsy was covering up for someone else, perhaps to protect the family unit. In this hypothesis, Patsy discovered the aftermath of an accident or altercation involving another household member and took steps to conceal it, including changing JonBenét's clothes. For instance, theories like the one proposed in James Kolar's 2012 book, Foreign Faction, suggest Burke might have been involved in a sibling dispute that turned deadly, with Patsy stepping in to stage the scene. The red turtleneck could have been part of an aborted attempt to redress JonBenét's to hide signs of struggle or soiling, but abandoned when the plan shifted. Patsy's changing story then becomes a protective lie, designed to shield her son from consequences and preserve the family's reputation. In interviews, Patsy's insistence on the red turtleneck might have been a subconscious reveal of her involvement in the cover-up, where she mentally replayed the redressing process. Fiber links from her jacket to the ligature and paint tray further implicate her in the staging, suggesting she handled key elements while John was elsewhere. This cover-up narrative aligns with Patsy's emotional breakdown when viewing photos, perhaps triggered by guilt over her role in concealing the truth. Proponents argue that Patsy's background as a former beauty queen equipped her with skills in presentation and deception, allowing her to craft a ransom note and orchestrate the scene under duress. Yet, this remains speculative, as no concrete evidence ties her directly to violence, and her supporters emphasize her devotion as a mother, unlikely to harm or hide harm to her child. The red turtleneck's role extends to broader debates about Patsy's credibility and the family's narrative. In a 1997 CNN interview, Patsy appeared composed while discussing the night, but later sessions revealed cracks, with her adjusting details about clothing to fit emerging evidence. This adaptability raised red flags for law enforcement, who saw it as evasive rather than forgetful. In grand jury proceedings, questions about the sweater probed deeper into her memory, but Patsy's responses often circled back to trauma-induced confusion. Theories diverge on whether this points to deliberate deception or innocent lapses, with some psychologists suggesting high-stress situations can distort recollections. The sweater's dampness, if accurate, might indicate it was rinsed or involved in cleanup, supporting either direct action or cover-up by Patsy. In online forums and documentaries, like the 2016 CBS special, The Case of JonBenét's Ramsey, experts recreated scenarios where Patsy changes the outfit to erase traces of an accident, only to leave the sweater behind in panic. This item thus symbolizes the unraveling of the family's story, where small details like clothing choices expose larger inconsistencies. Patsy's emotional ties to the sweater, as the one she wanted for matching outfits, add a poignant layer, perhaps evoking regret over trivial arguments that night. Exploring further, the red turtleneck intersects with other evidence, like the oversized underwear JonBenet was found in, suggesting a hurried redressing. If Patsy was involved, either as perpetrator or concealer, this could explain the mismatch, grabbing whatever was handy in a moment of crisis. Thomas's theory posits the sweater was chosen for its warmth, but discarded when the staging required consistency with the party outfit. In contrast, cover-up advocates see it as evidence of Patsy's attempt to normalize the scene, only to falter. Patsy's pageant experience, where appearance is paramount, might have influenced her focus on clothing, leading to the contradiction. Interviews with friends revealed Patsy's pride in coordinating outfits, making the red turtleneck a symbol of unfulfilled plans. This personal touch humanizes her while complicating the narrative. Did grief warp her memory, or was it a calculated slip? The sweater's location in the bathroom, near potential accident sites, bolsters theories of a hygiene-related incident, with Patsy at the center. Ultimately, the red turtleneck remains a puzzle piece in assessing Patsy's role. Whether she acted out of anger or loyalty, the contradictions invite scrutiny of her actions that night. Fiber evidence linking her jacket to the scene strengthens the case for involvement, suggesting hands-on participation. In depositions, Patsy's defensiveness about the sweater hinted at deeper anxiety, perhaps over what it revealed. Theories continue to evolve, with some positing the sweater was part of a failed attempt to move JonBenet, abandoned when plans changed. Patsy's changing story, from confident assertion to tearful recognition, underscores the emotional weight, making the garment more than fabric. It's a thread in the tapestry of doubt surrounding her. Lastly, one aspect that has drawn attention is the reported history of fecal smearing on bathroom walls within the household, an incident dating back 1993 or 1994, when Burke was approximately 6 or 7 years old. This behavior was recounted by a former nanny and housekeeper named Geraldine Vedica during a police interview in 1997, where she described Burke spreading feces on the wall of a bathroom in the family home. Vedica noted that Nedra Poff, the grandmother, had instructed her to clean it up, framing it as an isolated but notable occurrence amid the family's routines. The timing coincided with a period of significant stress for the family, as Patsy was undergoing treatment for stage 4 ovarian cancer, which could have contributed to disruptions in daily supervision or emotional stability for the children. Such acts in young children are sometimes linked to expressions of distress or regression, where they revert to earlier developmental stages under pressure. In this instance, the smearing was confined to the bathroom, a private space where hygiene issues might surface more prominently, and it wasn't reported as a recurring event at the time, though it later became amplified in discussions. Another housekeeper, Linda Hoffman-Plug, provided similar insights in her statements, mentioning instances where fecal matter was found in unexpected places, though her accounts focused more broadly on the children's habits. These recollections from domestic staff painted a picture of occasional lapses in cleanliness that required intervention, highlighting how such behaviors, while uncommon, can emerge in households dealing with health crises or transitions. The incident gained traction through various retellings, with some sources expanding it to include additional claims of smearing on other surfaces. For example, reports suggested Burke had also spread feces on the walls of JonBenét's bedroom or even on her Christmas presents, though these assertions stem from secondhand accounts and have been debated for their accuracy. Hoffman-Plug, in particular, referenced finding a grapefruit-sized piece of fecal matter in JonBenét's bed on one occasion, but she attributed other smearing acts to Burke, including the bathroom wall episode. These details emerged in interviews and were later featured in media analyses, such as a 2016 Daily Mail article that highlighted the ex-housekeeper's claims of feces on a Christmas present and the bathroom wall. The narrative often portrayed these as part of a pattern, though primary sources like Vedica's interview emphasized the single bathroom incident. In forensic discussions, investigator James Kolar referenced this history in his 2012 book Foreign Faction, using it to explore potential behavioral red flags in the family dynamic. Kolar suggested that the smearing could indicate unresolved issues, drawing from FBI profiles that noted scatological behaviors in some children as signs of emotional turmoil. However, these expansions have been criticized for blending confirmed events with speculation, as the original police reports focused narrowly on the bathroom occurrence without extensive corroboration for broader claims. Online communities had dissected these stories, with some users pointing out that the smearing might have been misattributed or exaggerated over time, especially since it predated other events by several years. This history ties into broader concerns about Burke's behavior, often described in terms of scatological problems that extended beyond a single act. Investigators and experts, including those from the FBI, characterized Burke as having a history of scatological problems, which encompassed not just the wall smearing but potentially related hygiene lapses. Such behaviors in children can stem from various causes, including developmental delays, stress responses, or even playful experimentation gone awry. But in Burke's case, they were scrutinized for possible links to deeper psychological issues. At the age of 6 or 7, when the bathroom incident allegedly occurred, Burke was navigating a household under strain from his mother's illness, which psychologists note can manifest in regressive actions like fecal play or smearing as a way to express anxiety or seek attention. Reports from the time didn't indicate formal diagnosis, but later analysis, such as in a 2016 CBS documentary, The Case of JonBenét's Ramsey, portrayed these as evidence of a disturbed child prone to aggression or odd conduct. Forensic pathologist Werner Spitz, featured in the documentary, speculated on Burke's temperament, citing the smearing as part of a pattern that included temper tantrums, like an earlier incident where he reportedly struck JonBenet with a golf club. These portrayals suggested Burke might have harbored jealousy toward his sister, amplified by the attention she received through pageants and family focus, leading to acts that disrupted harmony. The smearing history has been leveraged in theories portraying Burke as emotionally unstable, potentially capable of impulsive actions under duress. In Kolar's analysis, this behavior was part of a larger profile where Burke's scatological tendencies indicated unresolved anger or control issues, possibly exacerbated by family dynamics. For instance, the CBS special included expert opinions that such acts could reflect a child struggling with boundaries, where feces become a tool for rebellion or expression in a high-pressure environment. Discussions in online forums have debated whether this points to autism spectrum traits or simply typical childhood mischief, with some users citing child psychology studies that show smearing in up to 10–15% of young boys as a phase, not necessarily pathological. However, in Burke's case, the persistence of these stories fueled narratives of a disturbed boy, with media outlets like All That's Interesting noting the investigators' focus on his past infractions as context for understanding family interactions. Additional claims, such as feces on a candy box attributed to Burke by Kolar, though debunked by some as possibly JonBenét's doing, added layers to this profile, suggesting a pattern that extended into later years. Despite the debates, the history has persisted in shaping perceptions of Burke's childhood, with some viewing it as a window into family stresses that might have influenced his interactions. Accounts from sites like Georgia State University's student projects compile these details, suggesting the smearing reflected a loss of temper or frustration, as seen in other reported incidents. Psychologists speculate that in families facing parental illness, children like Burke might act out through such behaviors to regain control or express unspoken fears, a common response in pediatric studies. The amplification in media from tabloids to documentaries has kept the narrative alive, even as Burke grew into adulthood, maintaining a low profile and denying any involvement in related controversies. These elements collectively illustrate how a single childhood act can be reinterpreted through various lenses, from innocent regression to signs of deeper familial tensions. From the evidence found in JonBenét's private bathroom and additional related evidence, we can envision that this is a case caused by the family itself and recognize the roles of the family members in this case. The traces of unflushed waste, soiled pajamas, and hygiene aids like pull-up diapers paint a picture of chronic issues that point toward deeper familial tensions, potentially rooted in mistreatment and unresolved conflicts. These findings, combined with forensic details from the home, suggest a scenario where internal dynamics escalated into tragedy, with each member's actions contributing to the outcome or its concealment. John Ramsey, as the patriarch, emerges in some theories as a central figure whose authority might have enabled patterns of mistreatment toward JonBenet. Analysts have speculated that his position allowed for private interactions that could have led to repeated harm, with physical indicators like vaginal trauma noted in autopsy reports hinting at chronic exposure to inappropriate contact. This perspective posits that John's professional success and composed demeanor masked any underlying issues, allowing mistreatment to persist undetected amid the family's affluent lifestyle. Supporting evidence includes JonBenét's frequent medical visits for related infections, which some interpret as overlooked signs of ongoing distress caused by a trusted adult. In this framework, John's discovery of JonBenet and his leadership in the immediate response could reflect not just paternal grief but a calculated effort to control the narrative, ensuring that any hints of his involvement remained buried beneath layers of denial and legal maneuvering. Patsy Ramsey's role, often scrutinized through her emotional responses and inconsistencies, appears as that of a protector who might have orchestrated a cover-up to shield both her husband and son. Her detailed recollections of the night, including clothing changes and bedtime routines, have been dissected for discrepancies that suggest active participation in altering the scene. For instance, the red turtleneck sweater found rumpled in the bathroom contradicts her accounts of what JonBenet wore, implying a hurried attempt to conceal evidence of an accident or confrontation. In theories favoring family involvement, Patsy is seen as the architect of the ransom note, her handwriting style matching elements that demand a sum eerily close to John's bonus, pointing to an insider's knowledge used to divert suspicion. This protective instinct could stem from her own vulnerabilities post-cancer treatment, driving her to preserve the family's image at all costs. By calling authorities and managing initial interactions, she positioned herself as the grieving mother, while potentially erasing traces of mistreatment or conflict, ensuring that John's possible actions and any sibling discord remained hidden. Her alliances with friends and legal teams further insulated the household, creating a barrier against probing questions that might expose the truth. Burke Ramsey, the older sibling at 9 years old during the events, factors into narratives where sibling rivalry escalates into physical altercation. Evidence like the pineapple snack, with fingerprints linking to family members, suggests a late-night encounter that might have turned contentious, fueled by jealousy over attention or gifts. Past incidents, such as a golf club strike that injured JonBenet, are cited as precursors to more serious clashes, where a moment of anger could result in unintended harm like a blow to the head. In this view, Burke's actions stem from typical childhood frustrations, amplified by the family's high-pressure environment, with JonBenet's pageant stardom possibly breeding resentment. The bathroom evidence of hygiene lapses could reflect shared or transferred issues, where unresolved tensions manifested in disruptive behaviors. Theories propose that any accidental injury from such a scuffle prompted parental intervention, transforming a sibling spat into a covered-up crisis. Burke's calm demeanor in early interviews, discussing the night without apparent distress, has been interpreted as detachment or coached responses, though he has consistently denied involvement in adulthood. JonBenet herself, as the young victim, is central to understanding the mistreatment angle, with physical signs indicating prolonged exposure to harm from a close figure like John. Autopsy findings of prior vaginal injuries suggest a pattern that predated the fatal night, potentially explaining her bedwetting and soiling issues as stress responses to repeated violations. These symptoms, evident in the bathroom discoveries, align with psychological profiles where children internalize trauma through bodily dysfunctions, silently enduring amid a facade of normalcy. Her conflicts with Burke, possibly over trivial matters like snacks or play, could have culminated in a physical exchange, exacerbating her vulnerability. In family-centric theories, JonBenet's role is that of an unwitting catalyst, her beauty and innocence drawing both adoration and envy, leading to dynamics where protection turned possessive or punitive. The evidence of her final outfit mismatches and the staging elements imply she was repositioned post-incident, underscoring how her plight was manipulated to fit a false narrative. The interplay among family members reveals a web where John's alleged mistreatment sets the stage, Burke's potential outburst provides the spark, and Patsy's orchestration seals the deception. Hygiene clues from the bathroom, like the unflushed toilet and stained clothing, might stem from JonBenet's reactions to John's actions, creating a cycle of distress that Burke witnessed or contributed to through rivalry. Patsy's role as the family's public face allowed her to weave a story of intrusion, deflecting from internal fractures. Legal strategies, including high-profile attorneys and media appearances, reinforced this shield, with John and Patsy presenting unity while possibly concealing Burke's involvement. Recent pushes for advanced DNA testing by John highlight ongoing efforts to redirect focus, but persistent theories maintain that the answers lie within the home's walls, where roles are blurred between protector and perpetrator. So what all the fuss is about? How did it all really happen? From the evidence found, JonBenét's private bathroom, and additional related evidence, we can envision that this is a case caused by the family itself and recognize the roles of the family members in this case. The foundation of the hypothesis regarding the Ramsey household incident rests on a combination of physical traces, behavioral patterns, and timeline inconsistencies that suggest an internal family dynamic rather than external interference. Key elements like hygiene issues and late-night activities point toward a scenario where routine interactions escalated unexpectedly, driven by everyday tensions common in sibling relationships. This theory draws from forensic details that align with household items and personal habits, creating a narrative where accidental actions within the home lead to irreversible consequences. Without delving into the full details, the hypothesis posits that the events unfolded from a moment of conflict, amplified by the family's private environment, where privacy shielded minor disputes from outside eyes. Supporting this are observations from interviews and scene analysis that highlight how small, Overlooked clues can reveal larger patterns of interaction, emphasizing the need to examine familial roles closely. The basis avoids sensationalism, focusing instead on logical progressions from evidence like shared snacks and playthings, which indicate proximity and engagement between the children during off hours. This approach contrasts with alternative views by prioritizing domestic explanations, where the hypothesis builds on the premise that the incident stemmed from an unintended escalation in a familiar setting, underscoring the importance of scrutinizing everyday objects as windows into the sequence of events. Burke's unintentional strike on JonBenét's forms a pivotal part of the sequence, beginning with the children being together that night in a shared space away from parental supervision. The evening started innocently enough, with Burke engaging in his new holiday acquisition, a game console that had captured his attention as the highlight of his Christmas gifts. The console, a popular console at the time with its innovative 3D graphics and multiplayer capabilities, was something Burke had eagerly anticipated, as he mentioned in later recollections. He spent time setting it up and playing, perhaps exploring games that came with the system, losing track of time in the excitement of the holiday. This activity placed him downstairs or in a common area, away from his bedroom, extending into the late hours when most of the household would typically be settling down. The console's appeal, with its joystick and cartridge system, kept him occupied, creating a scenario where he was awake and active longer than usual. JonBenét's, hearing the sounds of play or simply wandering due to her own restlessness, joined him, turning what started as solitary fun into a sibling interaction. Their time together involved not just the game but also snacking, as evidenced by the bowl of pineapple left on the kitchen table, a simple fruit dish that both children enjoyed. The bowl of pineapple serves as a crucial indicator that JonBenét's was with Burke during those late hours, its contents matching undigested material found later. The bowl, containing chunks of pineapple and milk with a large spoon, bore fingerprints that aligned with family members, suggesting it was prepared casually for a midnight treat. Burke's affinity for pineapple was well known, as he volunteered in interviews that it was one of his favorite snacks, and JonBenét's shared similar tastes, often enjoying fresh fruit. The setup of the bowl, positioned on the table with a glass nearby, implies a relaxed moment where the siblings help themselves, perhaps after Burke paused his gaming session to grab something to eat. This snack break extended their time together, with the pineapple's preparation requiring access to the refrigerator and utensils, activities that a 9-year-old like Burke could manage independently. JonBenét's participation in eating from the bowl places her directly in the same space, sharing the treat and likely chatting or watching as Burke demonstrated his new console. The remnants left behind, including the uneaten portions, indicate they didn't clean up, further supporting the idea of an impromptu gathering that carried on without adult oversight. This evidence of their joint presence underscores how the night progressed from individual pursuits to a shared encounter, setting the stage for the unintended escalation. Adding to the picture of their togetherness are the 2 cans of soda found in Burke's bathroom sink, empty or partially so, suggesting consumption during the evening's activities. These cans, possibly Coca-Cola based on household preferences, were positioned in a way that implied casual disposal after drinking, perhaps carried upstairs after the downstairs play session. Burke's bathroom, adjacent to his room, would have been a convenient spot to set them down while he continued with his game or prepared for bed. The presence of soda aligns with a child's late-night indulgence, providing a caffeine boost that might have kept him energized for more gaming. JonBenét's, being with him, could have shared in the drinks, as siblings often do during such impromptu hangouts, grabbing cans from the kitchen or basement storage. The can's location in his private space indicates the activities spilled over from common areas to more personal zones, with the siblings moving around the house freely. This detail reinforces their companionship that night, as the soda consumption would have been part of the fun, perhaps paired with the pineapple for a makeshift snack party. The empty cans, left without rinsing or throwing away, reflect the carefree attitude of children absorbed in play, oblivious to tidying up, and highlight how their time together extended beyond a quick interaction. As the night wore on, Burke's focus on the game console intensified, with its novel features like the analog stick and rumble pack drawing him in for extended sessions. He might have been trying to beat levels or explore virtual worlds, the console's popularity in 1996 making it a prized possession that he was reluctant to set aside. JonBenét's, curious about her brother's new toy, likely wanted to join in or watch closely, her presence adding to the excitement, but also potentially leading to minor annoyances. Siblings at that age often vie for turns or attention around shared interests, and the console became a focal point for their interaction. The aftermath of the strike saw the children still in the space defined by their activities. The game console paused mid-game, its screen frozen on a level or menu. The bowl of pineapple and soda cans remained as silent witnesses to their presence together, the uneaten fruit and empty containers capturing the abrupt end to their fun. Burke's realization of the mishap shifted the tone, but the evidence of their shared time, through the snack and play, remains key to understanding the sequence. The console, left connected, symbolized the interrupted joy, while the bathroom findings tie back to ongoing habits that might have influenced their interactions. This chain of events, from gaming to snacking to conflict, illustrates how ordinary moments can pivot unexpectedly, with the items left behind providing a timeline of their night. Following the initial incident where Burke unintentionally struck JonBenet during their late-night interaction, the sequence shifted as John became aware of the situation. He quickly assessed the circumstances and realized that any formal examination of JonBenet would likely uncover his prior sensitive mistreatment of her, a secret he had kept hidden through careful control within the household. This fear prompted him to take immediate steps to finalize the events, ensuring that the outcome appeared irreversible and beyond simple accident. John began by addressing the immediate needs, using items from around the home to adjust the scene in a way that would obscure the true origins. He then proceeded to orchestrate the appearance of a kidnapping, crafting a narrative that diverted attention from internal family matters to an external threat. This involved creating a ransom note with specific details drawn from his own life, such as a demand amount tied to his professional earnings, to make it seem like a calculated outsider attack. Throughout this process, John maintained composure, directing the adjustments to the environment and positioning elements to support the kidnapping story, all while keeping his personal secret protected from discovery. As the sequence unfolded, John involved Patsy in the next phase, explaining the situation in terms that emphasized the need for unity to safeguard their remaining child and preserve the family's reputation. Patsy, upon learning of the initial mishap, agreed to participate in the adjustments, motivated by her desire to shield Burke from any repercussions and maintain the polished image they had cultivated in their community. She contributed by drafting the ransom note under John's guidance, incorporating phrases and details that aligned with the kidnapping facade, ensuring it sounded urgent and foreign to their household. This step allowed her to feel she was actively protecting her son, preventing the incident from escalating into a public scandal that could tarnish their social standing. Patsy then assisted in minor rearrangements around the home, focusing on areas like the kitchen and entry points to reinforce the illusion of an intrusion. Her involvement extended to making the early morning call for help, adhering to the plan John had outlined to bring outsiders into the picture without revealing the true sequence. Throughout, Patsy's actions reflected her priority on family preservation, balancing her emotional distress with the practical steps John suggested to contain the matter. The progression continued as John refined the setup, incorporating household objects to enhance the kidnapping illusion while ensuring his own traces were minimized. He selected items like cord and tape from accessible storage, applying them in a manner that supported the external threat story, all without alerting Patsy to his underlying motives. This careful selection helped him maintain control over the narrative, directing Patsy's efforts toward elements that would later draw scrutiny away from him. Patsy, in turn, focused on the communicative aspects, refining the note's language to include warnings and demands that she believed would convince authorities of an outsider's involvement. Her participation stemmed from a deep-seated need to protect Burke, viewing the adjustments as necessary to avoid legal entanglements that could separate him from the family. As the hours passed, John monitored the overall arrangement, making subtle changes to align everything with the kidnapping theme, while Patsy handled the immediate outreach, contacting friends to create a support network that unwittingly bolstered their story. In the ensuing steps, John took charge of finalizing key details, using the time before dawn to erase any direct links to the initial sibling interaction. He encouraged Patsy to remain in her previous attire, subtly ensuring her presence was tied to the scene in ways that reinforced her role in the adjustments. Patsy's compliance came from her commitment to safeguarding the family's image, believing that a united front would mitigate any fallout from the mishap. She assisted in placing the note in a prominent location, following John's instructions to make it the focal point of discovery. This collaborative effort allowed John to layer the deception, incorporating elements that pointed outward while protecting his secret from exposure during any subsequent scrutiny. Patsy's focus remained on emotional containment, reassuring herself that these actions would preserve their life together and prevent the incident from defining their legacy. As the plan solidified, John reviewed the overall setup, satisfied that it masked the true origins, and shifted blame externally. Patsy, driven by maternal instinct, continued her part by preparing for the arrival of help, her actions underscoring her dedication to shielding Burke and upholding the family's esteemed position. The sequence reflected a calculated progression, where each step built upon the last to create a cohesive, if flawed, alternative explanation for the events. John's foresight in anticipating examination risks guided his decisions, while Patsy's involvement ensured the family's unity in the face of crisis. In reflecting on the Ramsey case, one of the most profound lessons emerges from how it exemplifies the complexities and heart-wrenching realities of child-related crimes. These incidents often spiral into a web of issues that go far beyond the surface, revealing deep-seated problems like family dysfunction, overlooked warning signs, and the failures of systems meant to protect the vulnerable. Every detail, whether a misplaced item in a bathroom or an unexplained habit, can unravel layers of serious concerns, from emotional neglect to patterns of sensitive mistreatment that simmer unnoticed until tragedy strikes. The case shows how seemingly minor clues, like hygiene lapses or sibling interactions, can signal broader societal failures, where privacy shields harm and authority figures evade scrutiny. It's a stark reminder that child cases aren't just puzzles to solve, they're mirrors reflecting our collective blind spots in safeguarding innocence, where media sensationalism and legal loopholes often exacerbate the pain rather than resolve it. At the core of such tragedies are the pitiful children caught in the crossfire, their lives reduced to footnotes in a narrative dominated by adult accusations and defenses. Behind the finger pointing at suspects lies a profound sorrow for the victims, these young souls who deserved safety, love, and a chance to grow without fear. JonBenét's, like so many others in similar cases, becomes a symbol of lost potential, her story underscoring how children in affluent or seemingly stable homes can still suffer in silence. The blame game directed at potential perpetrators must be tempered with empathy for these innocents, whose voices are forever silenced, leaving us to grapple with the what-ifs of prevention. It's easy to condemn the accused, but the true tragedy is the systemic oversight that allows such vulnerabilities to fester, turning everyday homes into breeding grounds for unspoken horrors. This case urges us to question our own roles in recognizing and addressing these issues. What if every unexplained bruise or behavioral change was taken seriously, rather than dismissed as normal? Could earlier interventions have altered the course for children like JonBenét's? And in a world quick to judge families from afar, how do we balance suspicion with compassion to ensure no child slips through the cracks? These questions linger, challenging us to advocate for better protections, where vigilance replaces regret, and the focus shifts from post-mortem debates to proactive care for the most defenseless among us.